I was lying in a hospital bed, hooked up to so many monitors I looked like a human science experiment, when my mom called to tell me they'd started a GoFundMe for my medical bills. "We've already raised $8,000, she exclaimed. "Everyone's been so generous." I felt a wave of gratitude wash over me despite the nausea. 6 weeks of complications had drained our savings and maxed out our credit cards. What I didn't know then was that my parents had actually raised $23,000. And most of all, it wasn't going toward saving my baby's life. It was funding my sister Kate's destination wedding in Santorini. The heart monitor beeped steadily beside me as I whispered, "Thank you," through tears, genuinely moved that my family had stepped up when I needed them most. For once, it seemed. Like they saw me, really saw me. Instead of just seeing Kate, their golden child who could do no wrong, I had no idea that lying in that hospital bed, thinking my family had finally prioritized me, was actually the calm before the storm. And the storm? It was about to hit with Category 5 force. 2 days later, my husband Michael found the bank statements. He was looking for some paperwork to file for our insurance claim when he stumbled across my parents' online banking details, still logged in on our shared family computer from when they'd been staying at our house. What he found made him physically sick. They'd raised $23,479 in my name, but only $5,000 had been transferred to an account labeled Emma's Medical Fund. The rest, over $18,000, had gone straight into something called Kate's Dream Day. Michael printed everything, hands shaking with rage, and brought the evidence to my hospital room that evening. As I stared at those papers, at the casual way they'd redirected thousands meant for my high-risk pregnancy care into my sister's wedding fund, something inside me finally broke. And from that broken place emerged a clarity I'd never known before. I wasn't going to just forgive and forget this time. I was going to burn their entire manipulative world to the ground. Updated. I've been reading your comments and I'm overwhelmed by the support. Yes, I have all the screenshots and bank records. Michael. Made copies of everything before logging out. Some of you asked if I confronted them immediately. I didn't. I had something better planned. Have you ever reached a point where you realized your family never actually loved you? Just what you could do for them? I've always been the responsible one, the fixer, the family ATM. When Kate needed money for college, I covered her rent. When my parents' roof leaked, I paid for repairs. When their car broke down, I bought them a new one. I've supported them financially for years, ever since I landed my marketing director position at 26. Meanwhile, Kate bounced between jobs, apartments, and relationships, always landing on her feet because someone, usually me, was there to catch her. That dynamic started when we were kids. Kate was the surprise baby, the miracle child my parents had after being told they couldn't have more children. She was beautiful, charismatic, and dramatic from day one. I was the practical, reliable older sister who was expected to be the bigger person whenever conflicts arose. On Kate's 16th birthday, our parents threw her a massive party with a live band and professional photographer. For my 16th, I got a card and dinner. At Olive Garden, when Kate wrecked her first car, they bought her a new one. When I needed a car for college, they suggested I take out a loan. The pattern was established early. Kate deserved things. I was supposed to earn them. My parents didn't see anything wrong with this arrangement. "Kate just needs more support," they'd say. "You're so independent." They framed my self-sufficiency as a personality trait, rather than a survival mechanism I developed because nobody ever put me first. Despite this, I maintained a relationship with them. I told myself that family is family, that they loved me in their own way. I convinced myself that as long as I kept proving my worth through achievements and financial support, they'd eventually see me as equal to Kate. When I met Michael 5 years ago, he was the first person to point out how unbalanced my family dynamic was. "You realize you've given them over $30,000 in the past 2 years, right?" He asked one night after I'd transferred money for my dad's emergency dental work, which mysteriously coincided with Kate's spontaneous trip to Miami. I brushed it off. "They'd do the same for me if I needed it," I insisted. Michael wasn't convinced, but he respected my choices. We got married in a simple ceremony 3 years ago. My parents complained about the location, the food, and the fact that we didn't have an open bar. Kate showed up an hour late and left early. When we announced my pregnancy last year, my parents seemed genuinely happy. Kate, not so much. "Guess I need to hurry up and get engaged so I don't get upstaged," she joked during our family dinner. 2 months later, she was engaged to Andrew, a guy she'd been dating for all of 6 months. Suddenly, all family conversations revolved around their wedding plans. My pregnancy complications started during my second trimester. Severe preeclampsia threatened placental abruption, and gestational diabetes turned what should have been a joyful time into a medical nightmare. At 28 weeks, I was admitted to the hospital for extended observation. The doctors were blunt. Both my life and my baby's were at risk. My parents visited once, briefly. Kate never came. "Hospitals freak me out," she texted. "Plus, I'm super busy with wedding stuff." They called occasionally. Asking about my condition in a perfunctory way before pivoting to updates about Kate's wedding plans, the date was set for June in Santorini, just 1 month after my due date. Maybe you can still come if the baby's healthy, my mom suggested. During one call, Kate would be devastated if you missed it. I didn't respond, too busy trying to breathe through the contraction that was squeezing my abdomen like a vice. Our insurance covered most of the standard prenatal care, but the specialized treatments and extended hospital stay quickly exceeded our coverage limits. Michael and I had savings, but not enough. We were drowning in medical bills, terrified about how we'd afford the care I needed to keep our baby alive. That's when my parents stepped in with their offer to create a GoFundMe campaign. "We'll handle everything," my dad promised. "You just focus on staying healthy." It felt like a miracle, like they were finally seeing my need and responding to it. For the first time in years, I felt like my family was putting me first. I had no idea they were using my medical crisis as a cash cow for Kate's wedding. No idea that my pale face and hospital gown were featured in heart-wrenching social media posts asking for donations that would mostly fund my sister's dream of getting married on a cliff overlooking the Aegean Sea. But I was about to find out, and their betrayal would unleash something in me that had been dormant for decades. The realization that I deserved better and the courage to finally demand it. The evidence was undeniable. Page after page of bank statements showed the money flow, donations in, immediate transfers out to Kate's dream day. There were even text messages Michael had found when he checked my mom's iPad that she'd left at our house. Messages to Kate about how they'd secured the funds for her wedding venue upgrade and private yacht rehearsal dinner. "I can't believe they would do this," Michael said, his voice breaking as he sat beside my hospital bed. "Using your condition to raise money for Kate's wedding? That's beyond messed up." I stared at the ceiling, feeling strangely calm. This betrayal was so massive, so complete, that it had pushed me past anger into a state of cold clarity. "Actually, I can believe it," I replied. "This is who they've always been. I just didn't want to see it." The next day, my parents visited, all smiles and false concern. My mom placed a small gift bag on my bedside table. "Just a little something to cheer you up," she said. Inside was a cheap scented lotion and a pack of hospital-approved socks. Meanwhile, according to the statements Michael had found, they'd just transferred $200 to the wedding photographer Kate had chosen for her Santorini sunset shoot. "How's the fundraiser going?" I asked casually. My mom's eyes lit up. "Oh, wonderfully. Everyone's been so generous. We're up to about $9,000 now." The lie slid off her tongue effortlessly. "It should help with some of those bills." I nodded, maintaining my composure as I thought about the actual $23,470 they'd raised, and how little of it was coming my way. I asked when they'd transfer the funds to us. "Well, we need to keep it in our account for now," my dad interjected quickly. "For accounting purposes, we'll handle the bills directly." "That makes sense," I said, watching their shoulders relax at my apparent acceptance. "Could you show me the GoFundMe page? I'd like to see the comments from people who donated." They exchanged a quick glance. "It's set to private," my mom explained. "More dignified that way." Another lie, Michael had already found the very public campaign, featuring photos of me in my hospital bed, photos I had never consented to sharing, alongside a heart-wrenching story about my pregnancy complications and our financial struggles. The fundraiser wasn't even in my name. It was titled, "Help the Thompson Family Through Medical Crisis," so the money could go directly to my parents. For the next week, I said nothing. I let them visit, accepted their token gifts, and listened to their updates about Kate's wedding plans. My sister called once, complaining about how stressful wedding planning was. "You're lucky you're just lying in bed all day," she said. "Planning this wedding is literally killing me." I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. While I was playing the role of grateful daughter, Michael was gathering more evidence. He documented everything. Bank transfers, timestamps, the public fundraiser posts, text messages between my parents, and Kate discussing how to spend the windfall. He consulted with a lawyer friend who specialized in fraud cases. The verdict was clear. What they were doing was criminal. We could press charges if we wanted to, but I had a different kind of justice in mind. My condition stabilized enough for me to be discharged after 3 weeks in the hospital. Though I was still on strict bed rest at home, Kate's engagement party was scheduled for that weekend at an expensive restaurant downtown. Despite my doctor's orders, I insisted on attending. "Are you sure about this?" Michael asked as he helped me dress for the event. "You should be resting." "I've never been more sure of anything," I replied, sliding the folder of evidence into my purse. The restaurant was packed with family and friends when we arrived. Kate was holding court in a white designer dress that probably cost more than our monthly mortgage, or about 3 of my specialized prenatal visits. My parents hovered nearby, beaming with pride. Kate looked surprised to see me. "Oh, wow, they let you out?" she said, giving me an air kiss. "You look—" Her eyes tracked over my still swollen face and the medical ID bracelet I deliberately left on my wrist. "Like you're feeling better." "Much better," I agreed with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Wouldn't miss this for the world. Dinner was served, and my father stood to give a toast. He spoke at length about Kate and Andrew's perfect relationship, about how they deserved a perfect wedding. And thanks to the generosity of family and friends, he concluded, raising his glass. Their dream celebration in Santorini is fully funded. Several people at the table exchanged confused glances. They knew about my medical situation. Many had likely donated to the fundraiser meant for my care. That was my cue. I slowly pushed myself to my feet, one hand supporting my belly where my daughter kicked vigorously. Perhaps sensing her mother was about to change everything, I'd like to propose a toast too, I said, my voice carrying across the suddenly quiet restaurant. To family and to honesty. I opened the folder and pulled out the first document. A printout of the GoFundMe page with my hospital photo. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as I passed it around. Many of you donated to this fundraiser for my medical care. For that, I'm truly grateful. I pulled out the bank statements next. Unfortunately, only about 20% of that money went toward my medical bills. The rest went here. I held up the statements showing transfers to Kate's Dream Day. The room went completely silent. My parents had frozen in place, wine glasses half raised, Kate's face flushed deep red. My parents raised $23,179 using my high-risk pregnancy as the sob story. I continued calmly. Over $18,000 of that went directly to fund Kate's destination wedding. That yacht rehearsal dinner? Paid for with money donated for my baby's medical care, the upgraded venue with sunset views? Same source. Someone at a nearby table gasped. Andrew, Kate's fiancé, was staring at my sister with an expression of dawning horror. I've spent my entire life being treated as less important than my sister, I said, my voice steady despite the emotion building in my chest. I've accepted it. I've even financed it, to the tune of over $50,000 in family loans that were never repaid. But this? I gestured to the documents now being passed around the stunned party guests. Using my baby's life-threatening condition to fund a destination wedding? That crosses a line I can't come back from. My mother finally found her voice. Emma, you're making a scene, she hissed. We can discuss this privately. No, I said simply. We've done things your way my entire life. Now we're doing it my way, transparently. I turned back to the silent crowd. I'm not asking for anything. Not the money, not apologies, nothing. I'm simply letting everyone know that after today, I will no longer be in contact with my parents or sister. I will no longer provide financial support of any kind. And I wanted to do it publicly so there can be no confusion about why. Kate jumped to her feet. You're so selfish, she snarled. You're just jealous because even now, you can't stand that my wedding is more important than your sob story pregnancy. The collective intake of breath around the room told me everything I needed to know about how that statement landed. Andrew slowly set down his napkin and stood up. I think I need some air, he said quietly, not looking at Kate. He walked out of the restaurant without another word. One by one, guests began to leave. Some stopped to squeeze my hand or whisper support. Others simply couldn't bear the awkwardness. Within 20 minutes, the only people left were my parents, Kate, Michael, and me. You've ruined everything, my mother said, her voice shaking with rage. After all we've done for you. I laughed for the first time that evening. What exactly have you done for me, Mom? Name one thing, one single instance where you put me first. Her silence was answer enough. I hope Kate's dream wedding was worth it, I said, gathering my things, because it cost you a daughter and a grandchild. Michael helped me to my feet, his hand steady on my back. As we walked out, I heard Kate wailing, my father trying to calm her while my mother made frantic calls, presumably to Andrew. In the car, the adrenaline finally wore off. I started shaking uncontrollably, great heaving sobs that seemed to come from the very core of my being. Michael pulled over and held me until the storm passed. Did I do the right thing? I whispered against his shoulder. You did the only thing, he replied, and I've never been prouder to be your husband. Updated. The engagement party aftermath was intense. Andrew returned Kate's ring the next day. My inbox filled with messages from family friends who donated, many offering additional financial help, which I politely declined. My parents tried damage control, claiming I was unstable due to pregnancy hormones. Do you think they'll ever understand what they did? Or are some people just incapable of seeing beyond their own selfishness? The fallout was swift and merciless. By the following morning, my parents' phones were blowing up with calls from angry donors demanding refunds. The GoFundMe page was reported and shut down. Andrew publicly announced his broken engagement on Facebook, vaguely citing trust issues and family concerns. Kate went on a social media rampage, posting tearful videos about how I'd always been jealous of her and had deliberately sabotaged the happiest day of her life. Nobody was buying it. The documents I'd shared had been photographed and circulated widely among family and friends. The evidence was too clear, too damning, for even the most charitable interpretation. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was calculated fraud that had exploited not just me, but everyone who had donated in good faith. 3 days after the engagement party, my parents showed up at our house unannounced. Michael met them at the door, refusing to let them in. "Emma needs rest," he said firmly. "Doctor's orders." "We're her parents," my mother insisted. "We have a right to see her." "You lost that right when you stole money meant for her medical care," Michael replied. "If you don't leave immediately, I'll call the police and report the fraud. We have all the evidence we need to press charges." They left, but the text messages started immediately after. "Dad, you're tearing this family apart over a misunderstanding." "Mom, we were going to pay you back after the wedding. You didn't have to humiliate your sister publicly." "Kate, I hope you're happy now that my life is ruined. Andrew won't even talk to me." I blocked their numbers one by one, feeling a strange combination of grief and relief with each tap of my finger. My doctor was concerned about the stress affecting my already complicated pregnancy. My blood pressure had spiked dangerously after the confrontation. She ordered another week of in-hospital monitoring to ensure both my safety and the baby's. During that week, something unexpected happened. People showed up for me. Real friends brought home-cooked meals for Michael and sat with me during hospital visits. Colleagues organized a legitimate fundraiser at work. My boss arranged for me to take paid leave earlier than planned. For the first time, I was experiencing what it felt like to be truly supported. Not as a reward for what I could provide others, but simply because people cared about me. The most surprising visitor was Andrew, Kate's ex-fiancé. He came to the hospital with a small gift bag containing a soft stuffed rabbit for the baby. "I had no idea about any of this," he said, looking genuinely distressed. "I thought we were paying for the wedding ourselves. Kate told me your parents were helping a little, but..." He trailed off, shaking his head. "I couldn't stay with someone capable of doing that to her own sister." "I'm sorry about the wedding," I said, and I meant it. Andrew was collateral damage in my family's dysfunction. "Don't be," he replied firmly. "You saved me from making a terrible mistake." By the time I was discharged, my parents had moved to damage control mode. They sent a carefully worded email to extended family claiming there had been a misunderstanding about the fundraiser allocations and that they had always intended to use only a small portion for Kate's wedding, with my full knowledge and consent. They were hurt and confused by my emotional outburst at the engagement party, which they attributed to my precarious medical condition affecting judgment. Nobody believed them. The family grapevine informed me that my maternal grandmother, a woman of formidable will and strict moral principles, had immediately cut my parents out of her will after learning what they'd done. Several aunts and uncles stopped speaking to them entirely. Kate's wedding was officially canceled. The deposits for Santorini were non-refundable. My sister moved back in with my parents, her relationship destroyed, her reputation in tatters, her dream wedding evaporated. In her mind, it was all my fault. In a bizarre twist, about a month after the confrontation, my parents attempted reconciliation through their lawyer. They offered a settlement. They would repay all the misappropriated funds if I would sign an NDA agreeing never to discuss the incident publicly and retract my harmful allegations. The document included a clause requesting I acknowledge that the whole thing had been a mutual misunderstanding. Michael and I laughed until we cried, then had our lawyer decline their offer in the most professionally scathing terms possible. As my due date approached, the hospital bills continued to mount. But thanks to the legitimate support from friends, colleagues, and those family members who had chosen to stand with me, we managed. It wasn't easy, but we weren't going to lose our house or go bankrupt as we had feared. My daughter arrived 3 weeks early but healthy, a tiny fighter with a strong cry and her father's dark eyes. We named her Lily after Michael's grandmother. In the haze of new motherhood, exhausted and overwhelmed with love for this small person we'd created, I found myself momentarily wondering if I should reach out to my parents, let them know they had a granddaughter. Then I remembered the hospital photos they'd used without my permission to raise money they had stolen. I remembered decades of being treated as less than. And I remembered that some people never change. They just find new ways to justify their behavior. So instead of calling my parents, I called my friend Jen, who brought coffee and held Lily so I could shower. I called my colleague Marcus, whose wife dropped off a week's worth of home-cooked meals. I called Michael's parents, who drove 6 hours to meet their granddaughter and help around the house without being asked. Real family, I was learning, isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about who shows up when you need them most, without expecting anything in return. 2 years have passed since that night at the engagement party. Lily is a toddler now, curious and fearless, with a belly laugh that can light up a room. We moved to Colorado last year when Michael got a promotion. The mountains remind me that some things in life are solid and unchanging, a stark contrast to the shifting sands of my family relationships. I've had no direct contact with my parents or Kate since the night I exposed their fraud. Through mutual acquaintances, I've heard pieces of information. My parents had to downsize their house due to financial difficulties. Kate bounced between dead-end jobs, still living at home. They blamed their reversed fortunes on me, specifically on the loss of my financial support, which had apparently been propping up their lifestyle for years without my full awareness. 6 months ago, they made one last attempt at contact. My mother sent a card for Lily's birthday with a check for $50 and a note that read, "We miss you. Family should stick together no matter what. Call us when you're ready to move forward." No apology, no acknowledgement of what they'd done. Just an expectation that eventually I would fall back in line because family. I returned the check with a short note. Lily doesn't need your money. What she needs is family who value her for who she is, not what they can get from her. I'm making sure she grows up knowing her worth isn't tied to her usefulness to others. That was the end of it. Sometimes I feel a pang of sadness for what could have been, for the grandparents my daughter will never know, for the sister relationship I once yearned for. But then I remember that grief is for something lost, and you can't lose what was never really there. The experience changed me in unexpected ways. I founded a nonprofit organization that provides financial assistance and emotional support to women experiencing high-risk pregnancies. We help them navigate insurance nightmares, connect them with resources, and sometimes just sit with them in hospital rooms so they don't feel alone. We've helped over 200 women in the past year alone. We call it Lily's Light. Every donation goes exactly where we say it will. Transparency is our core value, a direct response to my own experience. Michael says I'm turning pain into purpose, but it feels simpler than that. I'm just creating the support system I wish I'd had, proving that sometimes the best response to betrayal isn't revenge, but rebuilding something better from the ashes. Last month, I received an email from Andrew. He's engaged again, to a woman who sounds lovely and grounded. He wanted to thank me for saving him from a marriage that would have been built on lies. He's happier now than he ever was with Kate, he wrote. Some disruptions, even the painful ones, are actually redirections to where we're meant to be. Think about that a lot as I watch Lily grow. How sometimes the most painful breaks create space for healing we didn't know we needed. How sometimes losing a toxic family makes room for creating a healthy one. My parents and sister lost me because they couldn't see my value beyond what I could give them. But in that loss, I found something priceless. The courage to demand better. To build boundaries that protect rather than walls that imprison. And to recognize that love without respect isn't love at all. It's just another form of use. Lily will grow up knowing she is loved for exactly who she is. Her worth will never be measured against someone else's. And if she ever finds herself in a situation where she's valued only for what she can provide, I hope she'll remember her mother's story and know that walking away isn't failure. Sometimes, it's the first step toward the life you deserve. Updated. Thank you all for following my story. Many asked if I regret my decision to cut contact completely. The answer is no. The peace I've found was worth every difficult moment. Lily's Light has grown beyond what I imagined, helping women navigate exactly what I went through. Have you ever found that your greatest pain led to your most meaningful purpose? That's been my unexpected gift in all of this.